Welcome to Two Luckies,
the podcast,
and our series Dyin,
Cryin,
and
Lyin.
This is a series of us talking about Little House on the Prairie and our take on it as adults.
It is very different as an adult.
Very different. And if you sum this all up, they can fall into one of three categories, either Dyin,
They're crying,
or they're
lying.
So sit back, relax, come take an adventure with us as we reminisce on Little House the Prairie, Dyin,
Cryin,
and
Lyin.
Season 1, The Voice of Tinker Jones.
We've seen this one. We start out Little House, and Laura is standing there feeding the horse. That I think this comes up later. It's not.
Yeah,
this,
I think this is the first
episode.
time we're seeing this type of horse. But anyway, she's feeding the horse, and then we have a man who's traveling by buckboard and a team of horses clanking on down the road to their little shack.
Right, and she runs inside and she says, Ma, Mr. Tinker is here. And Ma comes out all happy with her purse, and she seems like she has ordered some kind of a copper pot to be made by Tinker Jones. We find out his name is later.
Yep.
And she doesn't know how much she owes him. Pa scares him because he comes up behind him because Tinker Jones, we think needs assistance or needs people to speak louder for him to hear
like
you.
He can hear very well, and he's mute. He can't speak.
Right, he's unable to speak, so he gestures, and they go through this whole thing. Carrie's out of the high chair.
Yay,
She's
Carrie.
lined up, so the whole fam is outside, and we got Carrie waiting there while her sisters get like briar-looking horses that look super expensive that he gives for free. They have paint on them and everything. And the pot was 35 cents. It was cheaper than the mercantile. And Carrie has to make a face before everybody realizes, because it seems like they always forget her.
Always forget
So
her.
she made a face, and he gives her a slightly sharp-looking fish, to which she says, "Mine!" And I think she's already had 2 lines, so Carrie is just going on right here. But that's how we start out, and now we are looking at the brand
copper
new
pot.
copper pot.
Pa's just making all kinds of assumptions, huh?
Yes, he's just coming up with all this stuff. So I guess the girls were playing with their new horses, meaning Mary and Laura, because we know that Carrie got the fish. Carrie is being held by Pa right now, who was just smirkaloo over here with a smirk. And they're asking questions about Tinker and saying, where's his family? And, where does he come from? To which Pa has no idea. And then he starts making all these assumptions about how he's happy, even though Laura says, well, it must be really hard for him if he has nobody to love him. But Pa is sure that Tinker's happy, and he says that all of the children in the town are like Tinker's children, which I will say, back when we were kids, it was more common and less, tarnished for children to hang out with men. And I feel like now it's kind of a little, I don't know, I'm hoping it's coming back around.
It was definitely a different world. But again, he just seems like he's saying all this stuff so they'll just get out of his hair.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, go put those toys away because, they had to go do something else or other. Carrie again, her 3rd line already, and it's something we're not entirely sure what she said, because I thought she kind of said, you forgot to wash my tushy, and he said...
It was something about, you forgot to wash my
the
fishy,
which is what Tinker gave her, which makes more sense, but that doesn't mean I heard it right. And now we're coming in, everybody's in their Sunday clothes, and they're heading into town to the church, which is also the school. And the girls are standing up because back then we didn't have to do any of that stuff with no seatbelts. We got to do stuff dangerous. Why? Because we could.
No safety.
No safety. We got a packed house for Reverend Alden. He's up there looking perturbed, and we find out that somebody is snoring in the front seat. Mary and Laura are over his shoulder laughing, trying to be quiet about it. And the children are trying to, figure out what to do, and the parents are politely ignoring it, which I call a form of lying, because they all really want to laugh at the fact that this guy just fell asleep. And then we have Reverend Alden comes down and he puts his hand on this guy's shoulder and he jumps up and stands up because everyone has been standing up and this guy was still sitting down and he was snoring quite loudly. And now all of the children have been sent off, I believe, to Sunday school.
Yep.
Or they've been sent outside.
They're sent outside the Sunday services while the parents stay behind because he wants to talk to them about a subject that's near and dear to his heart.
Yeah, so we have the suspense already, and we already had a lion. Now, I call this movie butter. When somebody is buttering somebody up so hard that it's like that overwhelming amount of, now they used to use butter, now they use oil, but it's like on everything. Reverend Alden is buttering them up. Why?
We find out the purpose of the meeting. He wants to get a bell for the church to ring everybody in for Sunday service.
Now, they have once a month service. He just said it. He visits once a month. So they right now only have church services with a reverend once a month, and he knows that they're a farming community. He knows that there's really only one family that has money, but he suggests a bell because we have to have a bell. Doesn't that sound wonderful? And Tinker is in the back, and we have a packed house of adults, just waiting, and they're all excited. And now Mrs. Olson is clapping her hands together because she sees an opportunity.
Didn't take long for the feuding to start, now did it?
They're fighting already. Oh my gosh, we found out that Reverend Alden did know that this community would have trouble coming up with the money. He wants a special collection, and he was saying once we find out how much money we have, then we'll determine what size bell we can afford, to which Mrs. Olson
has to chime in and say, will contribute the bell and the plaque.
And the plaque with their name saying that they paid for the bell and they're going to be donating the bell. And she's going on. And then Mr. Kennedy, who I don't know if we know him or not, and in the rest of he's unfamiliar to
he's
outside
one of the
this
locals,
episode.
But
he stands up and he says this is God's house and this is, not something that they want other people's names on. And now that guy who was snoring gets up, and now they are fighting back and forth, this Mr. Kennedy and the snoring guy, and they're fighting back and forth because the snoring guy thinks that this is great, we got somebody who's willing to pay for it, let's just get the bell, and they'll pay for it, and who cares who's on the plaque, and they are going back and forth, and we find out that Reverend Alden has completely lost control over the situation.
Oh, he's getting in over his head.
The kids had a nice Sunday school story. They were outside. It was a beautiful day. They're under this beautiful tree, sitting on these benches that I don't think we ever see again, because all of a sudden there's these benches outside under this tree.
They're there and they're gone.
Just like everything else. So now everybody's streaming out of the church. All the adults are bickering. They're going back and forth about how, the ones that oppose the Mrs. Olson's idea are saying that she's going to change the name of the town and wants her out of the religion. And they're saying, who cares as long as the bell is paid for? Then the Olsons are talking to Mr. Hanson and Miss Beadle. And Mr. Hanson approves of the bell, but I'm not necessarily sure if he's decided whether or not he likes this idea of having the bell donated. And Miss Beadle has already gone to, well, this would be great because we'll have it for school also, which now that makes Mrs. Olson upset. And they are just all of the adults, with the exception of the Ingalls so far. We haven't really gotten to what they're saying about it yet. They're just getting in the wagon now. But the adults are definitely divided by this, and it has spilled into the outside. Ma and Pa are divided. Pa is all for it, doesn't seem to care where the money comes from, and Ma is upset about the way they went about it, and now Tinker's the only one left outside, and
yeah, sounds like Ma was kind of just highfalutin.
She was highfalutin.
Reverend Alden is at the Ingalls sitting at the table, and the first thing he says is, Charles, I should have come to you first. But instead, I went to the Olsons and the Kennedys and the Nelsons, and he ran through a whole laundry list. It's like, it seems like you came here last.
He went to the entire town thinking that he was going to be able to get Mrs. Olson to change her mind. He went all the way around, and it is a mess all the way around. The kids are listening meaning Mary and Laura, are listening from the loft because we have no walls in this place that they live in, just a big fireplace in the middle, and they're listening in to Reverend Alden, who is just... He's lost now because Mrs. Olson is taking a firm stand on this, that it's either our way or the highway, and he can't figure out what to do. And now the pipe,
We got the pipe.
has made it to the scene. Pa just lit it out at the table because he's sitting there with Reverend Alden and Ma.
No fiddle yet.
No food. You know, they haven't fiddled in a while. We're missing the fiddle. Okay, so... we have Reverend Alden is here telling about how if he chooses one way, he loses half the congregation. If he chooses the other way, he loses the other half the congregation. And it's Chaz who's over there giving him, these kind of storms come and go. Isn't this supposed to be the other way around? Like, is
this coming from the guy who makes a lot of assumptions?
Yes, but like,
they're usually wrong.
Is he the one who's the reverend here? Like, did they forget?
I think so. On the way out the door, Reverend Alden shares with Chaz that half of them want to write his superiors and want him replaced.
After Charles just told him how welcome he is, because I guess the people in the community take turns on the Sundays that he's not there.
So what's the one thing he asked him to do? Would you just please let everybody know? I only want what's best for the congregation. I think we already know that. That's not what he asked you to do.
That's not what he asked you to do. But now Charles has his hands stuffed deep in his pockets. He's got the pipe and he's turning around.
I think he's looking for his fiddle.
I wish he would.
Looks like we found the case of
Prairie. Because Charles is over there trying to talk to Kennedy. You can at least listen. We're going to have a meeting, all this other stuff. And Kennedy has had his mind is set. He wants nothing to do with any of this. He's already decided he is against the Olsons and their bell. And he's the one that wants to do some kind of a collection plate.
Yep, so here we got Chaz. Looks like he's starting the meeting. Let's see what happens. Wow, Chaz. You started that meeting, and I don't even think you made a couple of statements, and right away the thing blew up and went out of control because first thing you say, okay, this is great. Yeah, we need some kind of a compromise here. Okay, a compromise doesn't mean now next thing, let's take a vote. Who wants the Olson's offer versus the special collection?
Okay, but not only that, he said, let's make a compromise, and then says this way it's not so only one person is getting their way and they focus in on Mrs. Olson. So, like, was that a shot at Mrs. Olson? Like, I mean...
They were just taking shots back and forth at each other, and he's standing there with his thumb up his butt.
Well, no, actually, he had his hands deep in his pockets for the entire screaming match between them, and they're going back and forth, and this Kennedy took his own vote, said show of hands, put his hand up, didn't look around at all, and said that's it, meeting's adjourned. So now they not only did they get nowhere, I think they actually dug the hole a little bit deeper than it was before.
Dug it deeper, and looks like they just disbanded the congregation. So good job.
And now we're back at the little house. Carrie is in the high chair while Charles is lighting that pipe. Boy, he has been puffing on that pipe, and the pipe is like a little extra co-star over here for him. And he's relaying the story of the mess that was the meeting they just had and how it got worse, and children would have been better, or better behaved than this. And now they're even talking about worshiping at home instead of worshiping at the church. Back at school, and the kids are walking out all dejected because...
they're not allowed to play with one another because of what their pa said about the bell, and they're not allowed to play with that set of kids because of what was said about the bells, so now it's turned into one big giant war zone.
And all the kids are just standing around together in little groups that they're allowed to be with, and no one's even like tossing a ball or playing. And usually for recess or at the end of school, they are always active and running and playing and doing something together.
Go Chaz.
Go Chaz. Reverend Alden is back, and he is showing the collection plate, and they pan over to what was once a packed house on Sunday for him is now I think it was 11 people, including Tinker, this is the only time you see him in this in this episode.
This is the only time.
And he is just dwindling over here. He tried to keep a stiff upper lip and a cheerful song and a cheerful face, but I actually would call that lying because he wasn't happy about it. He just lost more than half of his congregation.
What can I say about that? It went from let's have a meeting about a church bell, it'd be a great idea, to now there's Reverend Alden. I think it's best if I just leave.
So now he's talking to Pa and Ma is protesting, no, you should stay. And Reverend Alden is saying he thinks it's best that he should leave. And Pa is saying from now on they're going to be worshiping at home. And in 2 weeks, Reverend Alden is going to be coming through Walnut Grove on the way to Mankato, and he's going to stop by for their home worship at home. But this escalated like quickly.
Again, way to go, Chaz.
Chaz.
So on the way home, they're passing by the Kennedy place, to which Ma asked Pa to stop. I want to go over and talk to Mrs. Kennedy. And what's Pa say?
I don't remember because I was thinking to myself, she's just decided that she's going to do this. She didn't talk to anybody about it. She brings the girls with her. And there's no way for her to communicate in advance that they're going to be there. They literally just like showed up. Their kids were playing out in the yard and they just happened to be driving by and they showed up.
Yep. Pa looked at her and said, do you really think that'll do any good?
And she said, it's time that the women take things in hand.
We came across a case of
Cryin.
Why?
Because Ma said she was going in there to go talk, and it's time that the women take things in hand. And they're talking about, she's sitting down with Mrs. Kennedy at the table in Mrs. Kennedy's house, and they're talking about how they're going to try to fix all this. Mr. Kennedy comes in, arms crossed. He is grouchy, and he seems oblivious to the fact that his children are suffering over this, and she wants this feud done. And he says something about, I want to know does your husband know that you're here? Did he send you? I want to know who rules your roost. To which his wife rolls her eyes because he says that he's in charge of his house and he is yelling and screaming. And Ma stands up and asks him to watch his tone. And he says, my house, I'll talk the way I want. And now here they are. She's got the girls behind her, who were hoping that this was going to turn out to be something good because they were outside playing with their friends, thinking that Ma's going to fix it. And now they are stomping back into the farm, and it is not looking good.
Mm-hmm. Inconsistency found.
Well, Charles is outside doing something. He's fixing something outside. He went home alone. It was him and Carrie in the wagon when they left the girls and Ma at the Kennedy's house. We come inside now. They brought us inside. Charles is outside. And where is Carrie? She's
inside.
Sitting by herself at the table, right? Meanwhile, with just a few episodes ago with Mr. Edwards, she was all over the place. But for some reason, it's safe to leave her inside all by herself with the door closed. It wasn't even like the door was open. And Ma is bustling around and she's very, very upset.
For all we know, she's nailed to the chair.
Maybe like she was to the roof.
Ma stands there and goes on a whole rant of what went wrong at the Kennedys, and the whole time Chaz is just standing behind her with a big smirk.
Smirkaroo!
Smirkity, smirk.
Smirking up the smirks because they're really slow on our categories today. This has been the most honest episode we've seen of this show since we started. They have been honest the whole time, and maybe it's because they're all fighting. But I mean, here she is again. She's doing something out of spite, just like in the last episode. And she wants the bell just to spite Mr. Kennedy. To which Charles says, "Amen." And the smirk is smirking, and he's all sweaty, and she's hugging him, and she's got her bonnet on, and she was vigorously scrubbing some imaginary stain on the table.
Finally, we have a case of Lyin.
The kids are conspiring. They all went to go visit Tinker Jones, and they just happened to meet up, Mary said. They just happened to meet up along the way.
And
like it wasn't
that's their
planned.
story.
But the Kennedy kids said, "Are you sure it's okay?" So they knew they were cooking up a big ball of Lyin. Thank you, kids. We knew you'd help us out.
Courtesy of Tinker Jones, we have our next
Lyin.
It seems that the kids have all assembled at Tinker's, and first they start fighting with one another just like their parents, which angers Tinker, and he has to let them know in his own animated way that yes, they're acting like fools.
He's acting it out.
Mary translates all of this, and all of a sudden Tinker's standing there. He's like, with the notion of like, I have an idea. He grabs a piece of sheet metal, which
I mean, it's really it sounds like it sounds like the kind of stuff that they shake to make the thunders down when they're doing sound effects.
I didn't know they had that in 1874.
I didn't either. Like, and if they did, I think it would be kind of hard to get. But he draws a bell and he acts it out, and Mary translates, and then
Nellie's the one that has to say, "Wait till I tell my mother," and Tinker puts his hand over his mouth. To her, it's like, no,
shushing, yes.
You can't tell. So he's already asking them for
Lyin. I think we've graduated from Dyin, Cryin, and Lyin. Now he's got them thieving. Every single kid in town is going around after school because there was no Sunday service because all the adults are fighting. But now after school for the whole next week, after they meeting at Tinker's, they are going around taking every scrap of metal that they can find and bringing it to Tinker so that he can melt it down and make it into a bell.
They are thieving. So they have the fires a burning. They got a bellows that's almost as tall as Tinker himself.
And he's a pretty tall guy compared to the rest of the cast and the children.
And they're taking all of this stuff that they were stealing around town and dumping it in this fire pit. And next thing Laura says, there's no more.
Now, what I want to know is they spent an entire week.
Yes.
Before and after school was the explanation that they went around gathering all of this metal and tin. They don't have enough, and now Tinker is asking for the toys that he gave to Laura and Mary, and then they're going to turn it. They're going to turn the town upside down and find enough metal because they need more metal for this bell. How the adults had no idea. I mean, Mr. Hanson kind of seemed to have a clue, but how they went a whole week without anybody noticing all the stuff is missing. But now Mary proclaims that they're going to have enough metal by tomorrow morning.
That's a pretty strong proclamation, I think.
It's a pretty tall order, really.
Let's see what happens. We got our next case of Lyin.
Because when they are scouring the whole town for all of this metal, and then we get to the Olsons, and Nellie goes in the back and she goes into the storage room for the store, and she grabs a big bin, and they're taking toys off the shelf that look like the store had purchased them from Tinker, and they're taking them off the shelves, and we get back to Tinker, and he's holding a cowbell that somebody had taken off the cow, and he's holding it looks like a fire truck or something like that he had made, or I don't know what that is. It can't be a fire truck.
But there's Willie saying, "Yeah, Ma said we could take this."
And Ma said we could take it, and that is a
Lyin.
Because she didn't say anything. She has no idea this has happened. These kids have been stealing all week, and Tinker doesn't seem to realize it. Maybe he's more of an innocent soul here, and he thinks that they've been asking for all these things.
Stealing's better than fighting, I guess.
I guess so. I'm calling another Lyin. And it's on the film crew because we have the shot of this bubbling metal and all of the toys that Tinker made for all the kids are now melting in this soup of a thing that he's stirring around to make this bell. And when they show it from a different angle, you can see all of the legs still sticking out, when just before they showed everything melting and swirling around. The metal was swirling around, and then when you see the other shot, it looks like they could have just rinsed it off and started again. And I call that a production Lyin. Tinker pours the bell. We go over to Ma and Pa. She's pulling out fresh bread out of the oven. He wants a piece right now. She tells him it has to wait. Then she relents and gives him a piece. Then he says, I was looking for some old coal oil cans. Have you seen them? And she goes, what would I do with those? So they're starting to notice
That
that
things are
things are
missing.
missing, okay? The girls are over here waiting because now all of a sudden they're unveiling this bell, right? So
Right.
somehow it's ready already, which I'm not sure of the timeline for this. And a very young Sean Penn is helping. He's in this episode. I think he's uncredited. And we're waiting to find out. And I found it interesting that Mary says, it's getting awful late. She says this to Laura. And Laura says, we're staying to see it. So it's like, which one's the oldest here?
Mary just can't wait to power walk back home,
She just wants to power walk back home. And she wants to be a good sister. And that's it.
The bell is revealed.
Yes, the bell is revealed, and I will say that these kids really tried to give it energy, that they were excited, they were clapping, they were all giving it, and they go, yay, yay, woo, this was so great. And then we pan over to Tinker at night by himself, and
Yep.
he has some kind of a piece of wood, I forgot what these things are called, that attaches the bell to the post.
He
and
put
he's-
some kind of a wood handle to the bell, and he's got it hooked up with what looks like ropes and pulleys. But my question was, this church, here's another funny thing. The church had no beam on it up until this episode.
Yes, that's true.
All of a sudden, he's hoisting this bell up, and now there's a big giant beam sticking out of the front of the building. How'd he get up there?
Right, so we don't know where the beam came from, and then he's doing all this work by himself, which seems like it would be really difficult. And if you slip with this rope, you could have a bad time. You could end up wearing this bell as a hat, and he somehow gets the bell up there. That's the implication. We haven't seen him actually affix it yet, but now it looks like it's the next day, and we're back at Little House.
They hear a bell ringing.
Very clearly hear a bell. I mean, it is a
Very
bell
clear.
sound. So what does Charles do with this quizzical look on his face? He says, what do you make of that? It's a bell.
The bell, dingus.
It's
So
a-
what's he say to Ma?
I mean, it goes bong, bong, bong. So he says, go get the girls. We're going into town.
Go get the girls ready. We're going into town, while he just stares at an empty sky.
Right, he's staring at the sky while he hears this sound that he's not exactly sure. What could that be?
Can't help. I am going to call a big fat
Lyin.
because the Ingalls live at least 3.5 miles,
Easy.
maybe even more, away from this church. Now we're looking at the Olsen house. So literally, you could trip over their front porch and hit the front of this building.
Yes, you'd be
and
laying
the
on the
bell
front
sounds
steps.
just as far away in their dining room as it does at the Ingle place.
And it would sound considerably louder. They are right next door.
Lyin.
Somehow, everyone, no matter how far away they live from the church, which is also the school, which is also next to the Olsen's Mercantile, they are all, including Reverend Alden, arriving at the same time. Some of them are running on foot, some of them are riding in their carriages, and they're all coming in all at the same time just now.
Just now. I actually thought we were going to go this whole episode and not get the second one, but we finally got it.
We
have
got
a Cryin.
Thank you, Reverend Alden, because he's crying about the fact that this bell is happening. Everything worked out, and somehow Tinker pulled it off and got this all going. And now he's crying in relief because no one technically had to fork out any money, but they all contributed to the bell. And they don't really know that yet, but I'm telling you that because they have been,
All their
this one
stuff's
has been
missing.
the most honest episode of this show that we have seen to date. I did not realize how honest they were because they were always fighting. But now the adults were all bickering back and forth over here. Who came up with the money? Who did the bell? And then, the kids come out all smiling because who ends up fixing everything in this show? The children. We're finding this out, and the children come out and say, no, it was Tinker's idea, and we helped, and everything is great, but Reverend Alden gave us our Cryin. Thank you, Reverend Alden. We needed that.
I think we had our second.
crying. Because even Mrs. Olsen got into it. She was so moved that everything was back together because Laura had said he did this so we would stop fighting and we would all be friends. And now everything is right with the world. And we have to admit, this bell looks different than it does in later seasons. And they changed the whole thing of the building in the episodes before this one. There was no beam for this bell to be mounted on, and I think
all of a sudden it was there.
But I think even starting in the next episode, they have it's like a different configuration. But they change a lot of stuff on the set in this first season, that's for sure.
This episode, by the time we were getting to the end, I was actually thinking we finally found one that didn't hit at least 2 of our 3 categories. But you know what? We've been right this whole time.
So far, so good. Got it.
Got it. Dyin, Cryin,
and
or
Lyin.
Lyin.
And they usually hit 2 out of 3. And they did it for us this time. Although it wasn't the bang pow of the last one. Was had that Dyin, Cryin, and Lyin. But they were Lyin, not so much. This was very honest.
Very honest episode.
I would say, but even
we still
then they had Lyin. And
we still got the Lyin and the Cryin in.
There was
some thieving, right?
And there was some prying.
But they did it.
And there was a whole lot of fighting between the whole town. And the kids came together with Tinker. And this is the first and last time we see him. So thank you, Tinker. You brought the whole town together and you gave us an element that becomes a staple in the show. Because the ringing of that bell is something that is done forever afterwards after this point.
So make sure you join us for the next episode, which is called The Award.
The Award.
And that concludes this episode of Two Lockies.
Two Lockies, the podcast.
And our series, Dyin,
Cryin,
and Lyin.
We release these in 3s, so if you enjoyed it, there's more. Go check it out.
Go check them out. We'll see you next time.
We're out.
See ya.
Two Lockies.
Podcast.
Two Lockies,
the podcast.